Yo, what's up guys? Time for the final tier list of this year. Well, tier list January kind of styles, definitely not going to be the final tier list of this year. We will be making our TA tier list. However, I won't be making it to a tier list because I checked the tier list of last year and it's pretty much, they don't release 2As. They only released Harp and it's just builds here and rest don't care. You don't really have to make a tier list for that kind of stuff. But net 4 tier list, there are definitely a few new added units such as, of course, Agrias. It's going to be the obvious units at the top, but this is definitely more for returning players that haven't played for a while or either new players that don't really know what to build and those kind of things. So that's what we're going to be looking at. I think I'm going to be using the same tiers as the LD4 tier list. So it's going to be build multiple. It's mostly siege related. OP, but built for PvP. OP, but built for PvE. Niche for PvE. Niche for PvP. And then can be used, but is easily replaced and then not commonly used. Has some potential. And then we have bad and bad. Also in this tier list, I will placing the units left to right of like how strong they are within their own tier. That is pretty much all we have. And let's go into the tier list without further ado. And let's try to keep this video also under 1 hour. Timestamp, let's see if that works out. So first of all, we have the, I forgot her name. I think it's Sino or Shiho or something like that. It's kind of similar to that. She is like a fake Tiana kind of thing. So if you don't have a Tiana, this is probably your best option because it is a strip in a boost kind of style, but it's not irresistible. And the S2 is a lot worse. So I would say can be used, but is easily replaced by definitely a Tiana right there. Then we have the Shihwa, which I would say is niche a bit everywhere. You use it for PvE in the, what's it called, R5. But outside of R5, it's more of a niche PvP kind of unit. It can still be used in 4-star Siege, but it's not super common to Bruiser in these kind of styles of 4-star Siege because 4-star Siege is definitely a bit more focused on not sleeps, but either like really good Bruisers that can survive, which she doesn't necessarily do. It's not really CC Bruiser, and she was CC Bruiser, let's call it that way. So niche PvP, but can be used over there. Arang, I would say niche PvE. It is a wind unit that you can put towards like a few of the wind dungeons, of course, dragons and stuff. Dragons R5. But it's more niche than actually really good or anything. So I'm just going to place it over there in the niche shenanigans. Then we have this one, which is the Reviver. And I think she kind of bad. I don't think she can have some potential, but I don't think that she does all too much. Also, I would like to double check real quick. What does this other one do again? Because that's a unit I haven't seen in all too much. That's the one with Evening, balancing out HP, blah, blah, blah. Okay, no, I think she's just straight up bad. Delphoy, however, I would say is a priority to build at least one for PvP. It is a really good unit with the sense where she does have like immunity gain. She has a decent bit of recovery. She has the Oblivion in there. So it's definitely an RTA kind of, or not an RTA kind of unit, a siege kind of unit. You can also use it in arena offense with the Leo, Christina, Delphoy, Galleon kind of style. So there's definitely ways for you could use her, but I wouldn't necessarily go along with building multiple. Personally, I haven't built her multiple. I will also be using this tier list left to right for... But I think she will end up a little bit further to the right of like OP priority builds. Then we have Tyrone, which is definitely OP in PvE. It's arguably also good in PvP as well because you can go for the Tyrone plus double Robo. So then you need a Wind and a Dark Robo. It is definitely a good siege hit right there, but he's very, very good for PvE. This is your TOA friend. That's just the main thing. You also do get him for free right now, but this is definitely also with your TOA skill ups. You probably want to throw that at him because it just makes your TOA so much more simple. So Tyrone is definitely a PvP or a PvE kind of unit, and you want to put him on Despair. I would say Beretta is niche for PvE if you need a daughter and you don't have any other daughters, but it's way back in the days, and we're talking like 10 years ago, this was the only proper daughter in game. Now you have so many more options. So niche PvE over there, and that's all there is for it. Shimete, I would say, is good for PvP, but only if you play Cleave style. If you don't play Cleave style, he's more of a niche PvP rather than OP in PvP. But I would recommend everyone to build at least one. But he's going to be further down the line of like OP for PvP as well. You just want to build speed, crit damage, attack, max crit rate, kind of Swift style on it. Xiaolin, I would definitely say OP for PvE. You definitely do want to build at least one. It's really good in R5 early game. And it's also still very good in the Fire R5. So definitely a few places where you definitely want to build her. She is really, really good at those, that's for sure. And just full on damage build. And this is the one that has to provoke. She kind of bad, don't really recommend that. Then we have the Ling, which is the buff blocker. I would say if you don't have the other best in slot buff blocker, then she is okay. She is a priority build for PvE, and I would actually put it over her because she is, I would say, second best buff blocker in game. Ling is definitely good at that. If you do have the best, which is Cordelia, which we'll come to later, don't build her, but she's the second best buff blocker for Steel Fortress, but she's actually only used in Steel Fortress, so that's just the main thing for her. Then we have Lumerisha can be used, but you don't really see it all too much. Ikasha, or is it Ikasha? No, wait, Freya. The thing is, she's niche for PvE, but you don't really build her, and that's why I put her in the niche for PvE. She is really good at it though, but you don't really build her because you just want to keep her low HP, low level, and anything that kind of way that she can die, and then she's really good for your R5 team to keep up your whole R5 team without an actual healer in there. So definitely would recommend to build her, but she's a niche one that's, yeah, you don't build it, and therefore it's not like priority build kind of style. Then we have Akaris? Man, I forget all the names, man. It's been so long since I've seen all of these names. Akasis, that's what it was. Akasis is, I would say, niche for PvP. I've seen some people here and there use it, but it's the one with the shields and that kind of stuff. Personally, not really a big fan. Then we have Sion. I would claim Sion a niche for PvP as well, because it's definitely... No, I would say, like, build him, but we're gonna place him right over there. Sion is still good. Sion is definitely, if you're looking for bombers, he is still your main bomber out there. You just go fatal sets on him, like triple attack. You go will set on him. If they don't have any proper strip in his second life, he can get his bomb off. So that's still pretty decent over there. Then we have the Jojo, which arguably kind of bad. Like, he's a defense type bomber. And yeah, that's just makes it horrible scaling. So that's what we're gonna do over there. Lucian, I would still claim build multiple. There are still good Lucian hits out there. You can still arena offense with Lucian. It's definitely a little bit more difficult nowadays than it was back in the days. But you still have like the Dova Mirene Lucian or the Jin Dova Lucian. So I would definitely still go for Lucian. Build multiple. You can also still use it in your early Giants. However, it's not super common to use it in PvE these days anymore, so it's more of like a PvP siege unit right there. Then we have her with the speed lead. I would say niche for PvP, mainly arena if you were to use it, but it's not really common. It's more of like a 4-star specialty kind of unit rather than anything. But if you really don't have any speed leads in RTA and you would like to play some speed leads, then she might be your option, because her S1 with the sleeps, S3 with the sleeps, it does add a little bit of value in there. However, she's the one with the strips. I would also kind of claim the same, but it's definitely a bit worse. I would not really... I would say let's place her over here. It's like she's super easily replaced. Sure, she has like the strips into sleeps and blah, 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 that kind of stuff, but it's not really that good. And then this one, I think, is straight up bad. We don't really look at that. Susano, I would definitely say priority build for... PvP. You could build multiple, but in most cases, I think building one is just fine. You can go, however, for the Susano into Adriana into your actual nuker, and then Susano will give you 2 extra speed lead over Miying, and it's still pretty much on the S2. It will do a little bit less damage than the Miying, but he can still do a good bit of damage, and he's a little bit harder to kill. So he's definitely an option out there, but I would not really build multiple for him, but definitely would build one. Garo, I would definitely drop him the niche on PvP. It's not really a super common unit in PvP nowadays, but you can still use it here and there in PvP. Of course, Garo is also one of those core units that's good against the Acroma plus Zyril stage in TOA. That's mostly seated at, I think, 6-7. Like 67 is where it's, I think, located. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, then it's definitely a niche for PvE as well, which kind of can solo that stage, which is pretty nice. But outside of that, niche speed lead for PvP if you so need it. If there's no multi-headers on the enemy side, he can solo whole teams. But the big issue is, nowadays a lot of things do tend to have multi-headers. So Vampire is best build on him still, but it's not really as great. Orochi, I would definitely say Orochi is a must build for PvP and then mainly Siege. You could argue to build multiple, but I think one in most cases is fine. And the main thing you want to do with it is if you have a full-on win team in your offense, you can put Orochi as the lead and then you have a 30 lead. So you could go for Orochi plus Bernard plus 1 as your booster, like on the Bernard. And then Orochi does do a good bit of damage. Bernard can do a good bit of damage. And then your final probably also wind unit could be a Sonya, could be some kind of immunity giver, could be a tech bar giver, could be like a Bastet or something. There's a whole bunch of options that you could give where your Orochi is going to do a good bit of damage. Would you necessarily build multiple? Well, if you use this offense more often and you want to build multiple Bernards, then yes, sure. But in most cases, you just probably have like 1 or 2 of those. But Orochi is definitely a good unit. Plus, Orochi is also usable in PvE, and then we're mainly talking about the Elunia, the Sanctum of Fairies. He is usable in there if you don't have the if you don't have a Tesha or you don't have like a Sonya or any of those kind of units, then he's usable over there as well. So most of the time, just full on damage build. He's very speed scaling, so definitely focus on his speed scaling with crit rate and crit damage over there. Julie, well, god of PvE right there. You can also argue to use her in PvP. There's still like the Galleon, Bernard, Julie offense. If you want to build multiple of those, you can definitely build multiple of those. But I think she's more of a PvE priority rather than a PvP priority, because she's the only unit in game that can actually full on AoE the whole team or like a whole enemy's wave right away. You might argue she's a little bit hard to use, but I still would say the best team out there for Giants is currently still the Julie Sigmarus combination. And the easiest to build in Dragons is also a Julie into the triple bird, well, double bird plus a Nezuko, where you have the Julie being boosted up. It's a 25-second team, but you can build that on very low room requirements, and it has like 0 chance of failing, pretty much. So Julie is definitely a super high PvE build priority, but it's maybe a little bit more late game-ish rather than super early game these days. Claire, I would definitely say PvP priority build, but I would not really say build multiple. She's super commonly still on a fast swift build. Could be Despair, could be Vio. Additional damage is the main way that you want to go for. Also for Julie, the main damage output you will get from her is additional damage by attack and having high attack. Going crit damage S3 is going to be horrible. Also, if you do use Claire, Claire is usable in Steel Fortress. If you go for Claire, once again, go for additional damage by attack. Do not go for crit damage skill 3. It doesn't really work that way. Also for PvP, still go additional damage kind of style, because there's multi-hit on the S1, multi-hit on the S3. That's where you get most of your damage rather than trying to get some crit damage kind of stuff out of her. It mostly doesn't really work. You did see some siege defenses with her. It's quite uncommon these days, but in lower ranks, I definitely do think you still see her on siege defense. Then we have this one, which is the 5x multi-hit, which is kind of the issue in Giants in the first place. It was good when the Giant did not counter just yet to have a decent death break in. But right now, since we have the Prillia pretty much does her death break job way better than this one, so it's fairly easily replaced. So I would not really use this one over there. Lure, I would give him a niche for PvP. Some people might disagree because he has like a pushback plus a no-glance death break kind of style, but as of recently, there's just so many more good death breakers in game, especially AoE death breakers in game, where Lure kind of lost its shine, but you can place him over there. I can still see his shine in that. Then we have Sean, which is a really good unit for the new Temple of Chaos. It is one of the highest hitting single target units in game because he has 30 crit rate up in both his S1 and his 2, and he has 100% damage increasement on his passive, which activates pretty much all of the time. So I definitely give him a good priority for PvE build, but we're talking more towards R5, Rift Beast, and Temple of Chaos rather than anything. But he's definitely really good on the damage set over there. Then we have this one, which can go for stunts and stuff. It's kind of a niche TOA unit, but he's fairly easily replaced. So I would not really recommend to go for that. Lizelle, I would say, is more of a PvP unit, but I would claim him as a PvP unit. Well, it depends. If your guild goes for like Asher plus him plus Fiona's, aka the Dark Series, as defense, then yeah, you can maybe build multiple. But in most cases, if you don't really run that team as a defense, you're probably not really going to build him. Sure, there's some RTA hits where you do want to use him as well, but he's only used for the S3. Anything outside of his S3 is really weak. Like if he had a stronger S2, S1, he would be a something, but he's just built fully for the S3, plus his base stats are kind of all over the place. So as an S3, Death Break, Pushback, blah, 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 can get some crits in on fire and everything. It is pretty solid, but outside of that, he's a little bit more mediocre. So I wouldn't really focus on him too much. Unless your whole guild is building that specific defense, then yeah, he definitely goes up a few notches. Vertihile is actually a little bit less used, but I'm definitely still going to be placing him up high because he can still be used in R5 if you just have a casual R5 team that's running like 30 to 40 seconds. Your first Dragons team, he's definitely going to be used at as well. SF and SF and PC early teams, you're probably going to be building a Vert as well. But that's also the thing with Vert. That's one of the few units you really don't care that much about skillets because it's just a bit of extra damage. But definitely going for a Vert is really nice. If you do go for a Vert, I highly recommend Vert going all the way last. And if your Vert is going all the way last, it's one of those things that he can boost up the full team for the attack bar rather than boosting everyone to like 130, 140, and then they already would have taken the turn even without the Vert, which gets a little bit awkward right there. But yeah, Vert all the way last. You can also place him in RTA. In RTA, he's more of the luck sec typical unit. Some matches he has better value because of, let's say you have 45% chance to revenge. They have 3 AoEs. 3 AoEs on 45 is somewhat likely to happen. But if you bat it on 1 AoE for him to counter against the wounds and otherwise you're like stunned or something, yeah, it's probably not your kind of guy. So that's for Vert right there. I think I'd rather put him in PvE priority rather than PvP, but he definitely does have his value in PvP as well. In PvP, you could also still build him Swift. So he can go for multiple builds. But I would say unless you're really specific forcing him, he's probably more of a PvE unit than you're not going to use in PvP that much. Argon, I would say Argon is niche for PvP or PvE. Do we put him higher in PvE? I would say value in R5 for PvE. I'm gonna put him a little bit higher. You can arguably use him for Steel Fortress as well, but his activation rate on his S3 is really horrible. If he had higher activation rate on his S3, he would be really good for the buff block, but it's just a really low rate, and therefore it's not really that great. But in R5, he is still in the Katarina team, so definitely for the Water R5. Water R5, he's definitely a really, really good unit, so I would recommend to keep him in there for that reason. But that's about it. I think I'm actually gonna down you a little bit because you have a better replacement. Moving on next. Wait, are these all of the... Yep, okay, so moving on to a Hua. Hua is definitely PvE priority build. It is one of the strongest units in anything wind related. So if you're fighting Steel Fortress, if you're fighting Spiritual Realm, if you're fighting the Wind R5, it is super, super strong because she always double hits on wind these days. She's just doing insane amount of damage. And she has better damage than Lure if it's just purely on wind. Lure is better overall, but this thing has way higher damage if it's purely on wind. So also with the Wind Temple of Chaos that we're going to get soon, this is definitely going to be a super high damage unit. Keep in mind, she is mainly speed scaling. So the faster she is, the more damage she does, which gets a little bit awkward in PvP in some scenarios. Then we have this one, which can be used, but it's not really commonly used at all. This one, I would say I give it a niche for PvP. And the reason niche for PvP, I've seen this being used in some siege hits with a Raccoon and a Hwadam. But it's not super common, and even those I did not really feel like were super strong in that case. So I'm just going to give her a niche for PvP. You can put her to some PvE as well, but then I think she kind of gets outshined as well. She has like a good bio rate, that kind of nonsense. Chloe, I would say Chloe is definitely still good for PvP. It's not as commonly used anymore. But if you're fighting any team that doesn't have any form of strip, you can make Chloe super fast, Chloe move first. And then the thing is just hitting against shields and immunity and that kind of good stuff. Can also be used against Amduets. If you put a shield set on her, then she has immunity and then she has the invisibility. The odds of an Amduet as stripping all 3 is very, very low. So that's an option. RTA, you can make it some kind of Nem trap against the Wounds. I've seen some people do that because in the end she does have a high base and she does have the right lead. you can also do that towards RTA. So she's a kind of jack of all trades, so I definitely would recommend to build at least the Chloe. She's just not that commonly used. People kind of forgot about her, but she can definitely have some value right there. Then we have this thing, which is the unit that if you hit it, it gets bar. I've seen some people use it in PvP. I've seen some people use it in RTA, but in most cases, it felt like it's not really doing that much in RTA. If you do need a water tank on net 4 in Siege, however, I can see him being your friend of just building him the tanky and then additional damage hits and that kind of style, and then it's kind of fine. Antares, I would say, is more of a niche for PvP as well. It's not really super common that you see Antares in RTA anymore. Like, you have too many good units against Antares right now. He was mainly like a counter to Oliver, taking a lot of turns and those kind of things. It's not as common these days, and just a Douglas in most cases would do better, but some Antares here and there is definitely not bad. It's definitely good to build at least one and still keep it runed up, but I think I'm gonna put Antares all the way here at the back. It's like, keep one runed, build one up for RTA. If you so please it, you can still draft it, but it's most of the time kind of replaced. Fuko, I have seen Fuko kind of used for, well, if you are looking at your very first PC team, you could build a Fuko in there because of the slow on the boss, but then again, it's better to just go for the Doggo team-up team with a Vert, so it's not that common. I can see him being a counter towards some fire units as well, that you have fire units hit on him, he counters back, blah, 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 that kind of stuff as a tanky build. Could maybe be a thing, but I think I'll give Fuko all the way over there. Then we have this one, which is somewhat... Is that the one that's commonly used? No, that's the different one. The Conrad is the most commonly used. I would give him a niche for PvP as well. Like, sure, the Endure buff that he gives and a little bit of Bruiser, like utility and those kind of things. I've seen some people use it, but I can't really remember a proper offense with him. But I've seen some people use him mainly for the Endure and then protection, and then some kind of slow-ass Bruiser fight on like Fire Destroy and Siege. But I'll give it more niche than anything. Arnold is a little bit more used for PvP Siege, but I'll give him more of a niche as well, because I haven't really commonly seen him in current meta. Like, sure, there's a few hits out there where you do tend to kind of see him, but he's not super common. Maybe it's just super high in Siege that is less common. I think I'll give it like this. I'll give it like this. More of a Siege unit rather than RTA unit. But just build one. He has good damage on the S3. And if he can nuke something out turn 1, it's not that bad. Brent was actually my very first net 4. And I scaled it up with Devilmons because I did not get any actual net 5s. He's a good all-rounder for having a bit of healing, having a bit of survivability, having a bit of everything. If you want something to have your TOA auto, then he's kind of nice because of like all of that. But he's more of a niche PvP kind of unit right now, where you just want some protection in your team and that kind of stuff. And mainly Siege related rather than anything. But he's not doing a crazy good job at that neither. Then we have some of the Samurais. I feel like that these two Samurais are very easy to replace and they don't do that much damage. Whereas this Samurai is good on the speed scaling and is also more commonly used next to... we have seen it being used against... or just to outspeed things. But then again, I feel like that he got quite some replacement by Agrius. And Agrius just doing the speed scaling, nuking way better than this dude. So I'll just give it a niche PvP. But he was like a PvP kind of nuker on speed scaling kind of stuff. And then we have more of those, but I already placed those in. Orion, I would say Orion nowadays, I give Orion a niche PvP, but I put niche PvP Orion all the way at the top. And that is because you can still place him on defense, but he's only Siege defense material. Could be Swift, could be Vio, high accuracy is what you're aiming for. But he's definitely not super common on defense these days. Draco, I would also give a niche on PvP. Yeah, I'll give him on this. Can be used in RTA, but mostly in high ranks in RTA. Then you have a very, very specific team with all kinds of like speedy nukers and that kind of stuff. Sure, then he's good, but the odds of you actually playing that is kind of mediocre. But if you play him, it's just a full-on speedy contesting unit. Plus, I don't like it where it's a gamble if he gets the attack buff or no attack buff. And that's like, if he always had attack buff, he would be really good, but he doesn't do that. Aquila, I think I give Aquila a niche for PvP as well. And that is mainly because he's a good stripper. Actually, he's one of the very few strippers that is a strip with an attack buff and a crit rate buff, which all three of that combined is actually really, really strong. And if you don't have any other strip or a strip that doesn't really do anything else, Aquila is actually a really, really solid strip for that reason, because you do have that attack buff, you do have that crit rate buff. I think it's attack and crit. Let me double check that before I say something. That is completely untrue, but I am pretty certain that it actually is. Aquila, right? Yeah, this skill has attack buff and crit rate buff. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Plus you have the strip into that skill. Good base speed. It's definitely a niche unit. It's not used that commonly, but it's definitely something that could be used. Then going into some bombers. Malaka, I would say, if we're looking at bombers, I wouldn't even claim in niche for PvP. He can easily be replaced by something else. This thing is actually a bomb exploder, which not commonly used at all. It's like the fake Sierra. It's not commonly used at all, but it could be used here and there if you want to kind of still force that in. Same one for this. It's not really your most common bomber out there, but yeah, you can kind of go for that. Then we have something that goes straight to the top, all the way to the left, which is Miying, which is, I would say, unit I currently built the most of. She's crazy good on crit damage, slot 4. You don't even necessarily have to go for an attack 6. You don't see her that much in defense anymore, but in offense, she's just crazy, crazy good because she has that much damage on the S2. If you go additional damage by speed, and then, or not additional damage by speed increasing effect, attack increasing effect, paired up with an Adriana super strong. If you just paired up with a chilling, still speed increasing effect, she can do a good bit of damage. Don't focus any on the accuracy or any on the crit rate on her, and she will do a good bit of damage, plus has good cleanup as well. Plus she has 28 lead, and that just makes her super strong overall. But it's just a siege unit out there, right there. Mainly siege offense, but chilling and Adriana are main pairs that you will go for, and it's just crazy strong. Huahi, I would say, definitely priority build for PvE, and she's crazy good in any kind of shape or way of R5, Temple of Chaos, and Rift Beast. Those are main things where she's really good at. She's not really a unit you're going to place towards dungeons. It's most of the time where you have one boss and her full S3 goes on one target. Plus she has permanent uptime of attack buff by having 2 turns attack buff on the S3 and 3 turns on the S2. So perfect uptime of attack buff right there, which is really nice. 2 skills giving attack buff as well, which definitely add a lot of value to her. So I definitely would build one of those. But then we're talking just R5, then we're talking just Rift Beasts or Temple of Chaos. But Huahi is really, really good for those. Absolute best in slot for that. Jasun, I've seen some people kind of niche PvP with her. She's not that bad. She can definitely be used in early game RTA or early game siege kind of style where you want some revive or you want some healer, you want some immunity, you want a little bit of everything. So I might even give that over here. I think she definitely still want to build at least one Jasun. Especially early game, she will have a lot of value for you for just being the healing slot and that kind of stuff. But she will get outshined by net 5s at some point. But I would definitely recommend to build at least one. This one, Mr. No, Gildong. Gildong is, I would say, niche PvP. He is an okay-ish unit on the S3 to deal some damage and death break, but in most cases not really commonly used. But he's more niche for that than anything. Then we go for Crosswell. Not Crosswell, Argon. I would say Argon. I'll also give him a niche PvP, probably drop him somewhere along these lines. Can be okay at the Bruiser. He's a little bit squishy when he did his S3. That's his main issue out there. But it's still, he can drop quite some damage on single target things for that, so it's not that bad. Rosfeld is definitely a priority build for PvE. I would definitely drop him all the way up here. It's one of those units similar to Huahi. You want to use this for R5. You want to use this for Rift Beast. You want to use this, well, for Temple of Chaos. Maybe not really, so let's actually drop him a little bit down. But Subjugation, he's actually really good. So Subjugation, he's the best in slot. Also, if you have the time attack in your Labyrinth, he's the best in slot right there. So definitely a really good unit. Most of the time, just triple fight. Like, it legit doesn't really care how you build him. He can do some damage by himself as well, but just fight runes is totally fine. This thing, Sulter, is, I would say, niche PvP as well, and then niche in Siege, where it can kill some things that normally get revives in, but I haven't really commonly seen this one being used that much. But it is an option right there for the anti of that. Oh, I actually missed this one for the Gildong thing. It is, I would drop a niche PvE for him because he's good in TOA style. Like, he's actually really, really good in TOE. But he's not that commonly used because you have better options out there. At the moment you have the Homunculus Dark, that's definitely good. But the cool thing about this unit is, let's just find him quickly over here. He is pretty cool for the fact where he also lowers the cooldown on your allies, which is pretty rare. So he sets the attack bar to 0 and he lowers the cooldown. So lowering the cooldown makes him a really good TOA unit, but then again, there's a lot of good TOA units. He is needed in one specific COA stage, like the Spires, but I would just give him over there a niche PvE right there. Then we have this one, which, is that the one that also explode bombs? I would have to check. Do you also explode bombs? I think you can, right? Yeah, you can also cooldowns the bombs. Also. Okay, yeah, so you can offset bombs. So kind of like, I would say, easily replaced by a Sierra. You can kind of use it, but easily replace. Barky, however, I would say, do we give him the niche for PvE? He is pretty solid in R5 and those kind of things as well. But I guess we'll give him over. No, I think I would up him pretty much along this line. So anything that is water, he can be a good single target damage dealer that can also death break and also brand. No, actually, I'll few up him for that. I think he's actually pretty solid for R5 and things as well. So Barky, just damage dealer for R5, death breaker, that kind of stuff. Galleon, Galleon still goes to the top. Well, is Galleon a build or like a unit which want to build multiple? To be honest, I haven't really used more Galleons than just one these days. So I think I'm gonna put Galleon over there. And you might argue it's like, oh, you could use more Galleons. I think Galleon is still somewhat of a risky hit. Plus, you only want to use as many Galleons as you have Tianas in most cases. So, and even then, I'd rather use Tiana together with like the LD5s with speed lead, such as Maximilian Neftis, rather than Galleon. The only Galleon hit I actually do personally is Galleon Grogan, because then I expect my Grogan to one-shot it regardless. Only good Galleon hit outside of that, in my opinion, is a Tiana Chunkpong. Outside of that, I don't really like Galleon hits that much. I just go for build one Galleon. But yeah, in overall popularity, he's still like a really good unit. But I would say build one. You don't have to really build multiple. Moving on next to some mermaids. Tetra, I would definitely say you have to build at least a Tetra, at least once. You could build multiple, but I would say build at least one. I think Tetra, to be honest, I put Tetra all the way at the top because she's also good for arena offense if you don't, or like she's sometimes better than the Varomals in the arena offense for like Feng Yang and kind of stuff. In the server battle, really good. Siege offense is really good, but also your RTA. Sometimes you kind of want a Tetra over a Varomals or a Juno or anything like that. And it's really good. Keep in mind that Tetra is actually full scaling of her own HP. And therefore you want to build super high HP on her rather than Molly, which is just scaling of the HP of the ally. So she is a better healer for units that already have low HP, because then it's just a very high percentage heal because of that. For Molly, for example, then you want to have her being set next to units that also have high HP, and therefore you have a higher percentage of healing. Platy, I would say, is also mainly a siege defense unit, but it's not. Is it common these days? It's semi-common as a siege defense unit. So it's just siege defense where we're going to place it for. It could be any kind of Swift or Vio build out there. I have seen some usage of her in siege offense as well, where you just go for Platy, Adriana plus your nuker, and then you can revive your nuker, or she's the fire tank against the water unit in the enemy team. So she definitely has some value out there. So I think she's pretty strong in general, but mainly siege related. Would not really build multiple, however. Kiglet is definitely siege defense as well. You can use it siege offense, but it's not as good in siege offense. But siege defense wise, she's definitely one of the better siege defense units out there because of her 110 base, and she can fully at random hit things and increase the cooldown, give death break, so definitely very strong one. But building multiple, not really in current state, I would say. We have Ryan, which I think can be used for some damage things here and there, but is easily replaced. Trevor, a lot of people have been telling me, it's like, oh, Trevor would solo this, Trevor would solo this. I'll still give him a niche PvP rather than... Yeah, I think I give him a high niche PvP because he can solo things, but more often he's not gonna. But if he does, it looks pretty strong, but therefore we say niche. Definitely vampire build, high damage on him, but you still want a decent bit of HP and defense so you can actually hit that threshold to get him off on the counter multiple times. Then we have Mr. Logan, and Logan is definitely not commonly used. Can do some potential out there for some damage, but I think I think both of them are kind of on this level right there. Then we have Stella, which you can use in PvP. I'll drop this one at a niche PvP, kind of along these lines. You can use it for PvP. It does do good damage on the S3. Does she also have a cycling of getting her skill back if she lands enough of those? I'm not sure if that was the case. That was added into her at some point. Won't be activated. Okay, yeah, you can use this multiple times. So you get full bar and you can use this multiple times. So it's definitely a niche hit right there. I would up that in the niche value. It's more of like a siege offense kind of hit rather than anything. But is it crazy good? I'm not really too sure. The minimum speed on her, like you probably have, if you want to use her, Google what her minimum speed is. Because there is a minimum speed to making her get 7 hits. I think it was like 240, but I haven't used her in a while. Lexi is one of those units that is sometimes used for the passive to get bar and then ignore defense. I actually have never really used it myself. Some people say it's good for PvP, even RTA. I'm not too sure about it yet. I've seen some people say that it's good, but I've never really seen one actually doing really good. So it could be used against like Gapsos and kind of things, and Rileys and blah blah blah. But is it really that great at it? I'm not too sure. I'll just give it like this. Most of the time, I guess Vampire, just full on rage. I don't know. This one is definitely a niche for PvP, which is one of those things you can just kill one thing, kill another thing for half, and then that's about it. It's just like good damage dealer. But she's bounded to her element and doesn't really have a great lead, which her dark counterpart does have. So we're just gonna place it like on a niche style right there. Moving on to Magic Mike. This Magic Mike is... Yeah, I would say she's not bad early game because you get her, but she's super easily replaced. Astar is definitely priority build for PvE, and I would say all the way at the top. She's crazy good for R5. She's crazy good for your first Necro team. And those are the main two things that you will use her for. Sure, you could place her into Steel Forge. You could place her into Spiritual Realm. But her value of making your first Necro team is crazy high. So definitely she is a really high recommended build. If you just started playing off, definitely do claim her. Definitely do skill her up. She's going to make your accounts progress so much faster. So Astar is definitely a must build. She's always Vampire. Moving on next, this thing is not really commonly used. She has some potential for enemy max HP damage scaling, but haven't really seen the right slot for her usage at all. Emma, I would say Emma is a niche for PvE. There's some ways, like if you don't have an Alaya, you can kind of use her, is what people think, but she just doesn't provide as much healing as as Alaya does. Plus, she doesn't really provide a immunity, and the immunity part is pretty important as well, and therefore she just gets like a niche PvE. For me, or maybe a niche PvP. Let's just place her niche PvP. Yeah, more niche PvP than niche PvE, so gonna place Emma over there. It's not really that great, but could be used. Then we have this one, which I would say for your very first R5 team, Lisa's really good for your first R5 team, but she can also be used in PvP. So she has like a priority build on both, but I'm not really sure in which one I would say. I think I would place her more in PvE than PvP. Like, PvP needs a very specific team, whereas first R5 team, it's kind of nice to have her regardless. She's mainly R5, outside of R5, not really anything, so I'm gonna put her all the way at the bottom, but she's definitely really good at R5, like exceptionally good at an early game R5. Then we have this one, which is more of a niche PvE. It is the boost, or it was one of the more common boosts next to Copper and Dozer, but Copper and Dozer are not really used anymore. But if you have some defense scaling and you want to nuke that, it is an option out there. Then we have this thing, which I think is... Yeah, it's like this anti-revive thing on the net force. It's not really that great. It commonly, or like easily replaced as well. This one, Common, used to be a priority build for PvP. I would say right now, he's okay for PvP still. Mainly in siege offense, if you need a fire tank while also having a speed lead. But outside of that, he's not super commonly used anymore. But if you give good HP to him, some multi-hits, some crit rate 4, he can still be decent, and you could also still use him to defense, but he's just kind of outdated, I would say. But since he has some defense value, I put him over there. Ayunu is definitely a priority build, and I'm also doubting between priority build for PvE and PvP. To be honest, he has both. PvE, we're talking just R5. But he's really, really good at R5, especially the water one. But PvP, he's really good against those nuking LD teams where he comes back and then they don't have any sustain, and you on your Ayuno actually does do really well against it. So I'm actually going to put Ayuno all the way at the top over here because he also has PvE value. So might you ask, why is he that high in PvP? Because PvP itself, he's a little bit more niche used, but since he also has PvE value, I put him that high in PvP. He's just super all-round for anything that doesn't have any healing on the enemy team and high damage will kill him. Then you take out a unit, you're definitely on Vampire, and then it's really nice to go from there. Then we have Kubezanov, is a niche PvP unit for attack buff plus immunity. It's the best friend of Katarina, but Katarina is kind of unused as well. So I think it's just the Katarina kind of usage. But outside of that, that's not just used that much. Immensity, I will drop you at the niche PvP as well, because you're the booster for the Copper Dozer, but Copper Dozer is just fairly uncommon these days. Still could be used. I'm going to place it a little bit higher, but it's not really a common thing. This thing does provide the Oblivion and defense buff, but it's just not really working. Then we have Chilling, and Chilling goes all the way to the top, and Chilling goes right on this spot. Arguably, no, Chilling goes actually in front of you because Chilling is also defense. Chilling is just crazy good. Keep in mind with Chilling, two things, well actually few things. First of all, you want to go Will on him because for every buff that he has, he gets like 19.5 or 20 speed. I don't even know what it is because people say either or. 19 or 20 speed on this unit is what you get, or 19.5 or 20 is mainly what people say. So you want to have Will on him himself, and that makes him 20 speed faster, and then one of your allies on shield, and that makes him another 20 faster. Therefore, he's super crazy fast, and he becomes the fastest unit in-game, arguably. At least from a starting point of view, fastest unit in-game. His S1 does do speed scaling, which is really good, but also his S2 gives speed buff to the others. So if you have a speed increasing effect on the others, you can make a Miying or a Sonya or an Agrias or any kind of unit move right after. But you can also pair that with like defense units where you put this thing in defense together with that, with like this or like a Mermaid or whatnot. And you have a lot of options for him. You could also just bottom on Fire. You don't have to go Swift, but Swift or Fire is definitely most common out there. But you always want to put Will on him. Like, that's the most important thing. Additional damage artifacts by speed is super strong, but you could also build crit damage on him and then just go for like a crit damage skill 1. If you mainly hit on death breaks, because that will actually do more damage than additional damage artifacts. But then again, both of it, super strong. Smokey, I think I'll give you over here. You could be used. I think you provide some dots or some death breaks or whatnot, but it's one of those units that's definitely not super commonly used out there. I think it's, yeah, some continuous damage and blah, 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 and then the increase the duration. Yeah, nothing too crazy. Easily replaced. Windy is definitely still niche for PvP, or is it a priority build for PvP? No, I think I'll give you a niche, but all the way at the top. There are a few ways where he becomes a good tank on wind, but tanking fire units while not giving the shield to yourself actually made him a lot weaker. So I'll give him like the highest tier of this. You mainly want to build him super high HP, super high defense, and that's the main thing you want to go for him. Then we have this thing, which I've actually never used myself. I think I'll just place it over there. Then we go into these. Sonnet. I've seen some people go Sonnet against mainly the Odin team. So Odin doesn't really get any buffs when she does her skill. I think was that her or was it a different one? No, wait, I think I'm confusing her for the Harp Mage. What the hell did you even do? What do you do? The sleep increase. Oh, no, that's a different one. I'm always confusing this one with the other one. I think you're just bad. Let's just go for that. Then we have this one, Harmonia. I would say can be used in siege offense and siege defense. But do we also... Yeah, I think I'll just put her all the way at the back. Like, for siege offense, siege defense, she definitely has some value, but I'm not the biggest fan of her at all. Triana is definitely a siege offense unit, but it's also not as common anymore. Also not for defense, so I think I'm going to put Triana over here as well. You do have the one Triana offense with Reviver, so Eladriel, Triana, and then either Diana or Ethna as a nuking team, and then you kind of bruiser it out. It's definitely not bad, but it's not super common. But I think I'll just up you a little bit, just because you could also still use this like a Sonya trap counter in normal RTA. So if you're having struggles with a lot of Sonyas, you could pull her as a defense tank, and then she can be your Sonya counter as well. Moving on next to some Dice Mutations. Ludo. We have seen a little bit of Ludo in siege defense for a bit, but it's not really common these days. Morris is actually something that you commonly see in siege defense because of the speed lead right now. And he's actually having top tier in the speed lead shenanigans for that. So you have seen teams, for example, with like you into a chilling into like an Agrius, or you plus... Yeah, I think that's the most common, like Morris chilling. Agrius is one of those more common hits. But you can definitely make some teams with Morris. So I give Morris quite a bit of value for siege defense. Siege offense, you could use it, but a little bit to RNG for my liking. Reno. I did use a Reno-only siege, or a Reno-only arena rush. And I built multiple Renos for that. I would definitely recommend to build a Reno. But is he crazy good? Well, he's really by the luck of the try. Like, if he rolls high, he's crazy good. If he doesn't roll high, he's really bad. So if you just want to have quick hits and you don't care about losing a whole bunch of them, then he's really good. Otherwise, he could be a little bit worse. But I've also seen him in RTA with like double Nem will, and then he takes one turn, and if he rolls high, he can kill things. So he's definitely by the luck of the try, but I'll place him over there, I guess. But he definitely has good value. Reno's definitely strong. Twins. Starting off with Talia. Talia can still be used for... Is Talia commonly used? There's this one SF team where she's really good and still... not SF. PC team. Punisher script team where she's really good. And of course still in like the R5 Rift Beast and all of that kind of shenanigans. So I definitely give it some value over there. But she's not one of the strongest one out there. Sabrina is definitely a little bit stronger because she's the best pair outside of Martina for that. So I'll definitely give this a high priority for PvE. And then we go for Shaina, and Shaina goes all the way to the top. Because Shaina is used in the most amount of dungeons out there. You can use it towards your normal Necro team as well. She's the main armor breaker in Dragons, but she's also still a main armor breaker in R5 for a lot of people. And she's just overall really good. Now, I think I put it behind a star, but she's used in a lot of dungeons where you want a death break. You probably are looking towards a Shaina if the element is right. Maruna, I would give her a niche PvE, but I'll give her a niche PvE all the way at top. She is a good stun for just TOA, but only TOA. But therefore, I just give her niche PvE over there. Then we have this one, which I think is the one with the either ignore... I think it's ignoring... Wait, what were you ignoring? Were you ignoring, like, defensive buffs and that kind of stuff? I think so, right? Or were you the one with the dots? No, you actually deal more damage to harmful effects and ignore all damage reduction effects. Yep, okay. I'll give you a niche PvE, but all the way at the end. It doesn't really add that much. Zenobia is a speed lead for Siege, and it can be used as such, so I'll give you a all the way at the top of a niche PvP. It's not really commonly used these days because twins in PvP are not commonly used, but you could go for this. It's too bad that you can't pair her together with the Martina because that's her dark counterpart, because then you could go for speed lead and strips, but that's not really the case, so I'll just drop her all the way at the top of niche PvP. And then we go for a good old Journey, and Journey is definitely PvP related. Mainly, I would say it's a bit more niche as well. I think I'm going to drop it over here. It does have the Oblivion, which is pretty strong. It does have like the Cleanse, which is pretty strong, but it's also one of those units. If you miss your Oblivion, it's just straight up garbage. So that's definitely what you got to keep in mind. This one, I think, is not commonly used, but has some potential. I think you have like the buff block and reset, if I'm not mistaken. A whole bunch of these units are used that little that I don't even know exactly what the hell these are doing. What did you have? Decrease the duration, increase beneficial effects, and attack. Okay, yeah, sure. So, has some potential, but don't really see it. This one is, I would still give her a niche PvE, but then we're talking TOA. Because in TOA she can still AoE dot. Outside of that, you don't really commonly see it. I could also see a value for her being used in siege offense if you use some kind of dotting siege offense and there is like a Nora moving in front of her and therefore she has a lot more dots plus pushback and stuff. I could definitely see that work, but it's not really commonly used. So I'm just going to drop it at like a niche PvE shenanigans over there. Skogull. I think I'm going to put you towards niche PvP, but somewhat more niche PvP all the way at the top. Can still be used against tanky offense in lower siege, but in high-end siege, this thing is pretty much never used. Moving on next to Abigail. Abigail is priority build for PvE. It is just one dungeon though. It is just Necro, but she's that much of a must to have in that Necro team that she gets super high value because she's irreplaceable in the Necro team. She's crazy, crazy good for it. Plus, any account will have an Abigail. Thing that maybe old players were thinking of, like, oh, I should not awaken her because then she has S3. She only uses S3 if there's something to strip. So for that reason, just awaken her. In Necro, she will never use the S3. Moving on next, Scarlet, I think is a niche PvE unit. Wait, which of the skills did you have after that on the S3? This one was branding afterwards. Every beneficial effects harmful. Yeah, I'll drop you a niche PvE. I can see some value for PvE for damage output, but it's not really that crazy. Covenant, really good PvP unit for nuking out there. I think I'll drop you over here. It's mainly built next to like a Bastet for nuking, or you go for the Jemaya plus Light Homunculus, and then you go for a nuke. Mainly a siege offense nuke, but would definitely not build multiple. Kakano is still siege defense potential, especially in lower ranks. You do tend to see him in siege defense, but you also definitely see him in siege offense next to a Chilling and next to a Siren. That is definitely a very strong offense. So I think Kakano is still worth to build multiple, but I'll place him all the way at the end of it. But I would still say Kakano is really good to build multiple because the Kakano plus a Chilling plus a Siren hit is still very, very strong. Carbine is a good counter to a lot of water units, but I'll give him a high-end niche PvP. He was actually not that bad in the Moor meta. If a Moor goes for his AoE, then he will take attack bar, and then he gets attack buff, and then he can start hitting. But it's not really super common these days. So I'll just give him like a high-end. He's good if there's only water units, and they will AoE kind of style. Moving on next to these Gargoyles. To be honest, I don't even remember what the hell the water one did, but I think water one is definitely pretty mid. Where Gargoyle's at? Gargoyle right over there. This one is the one. Yeah, this one. Have really not seen this one. Maybe has some potential, but not really used. These two are definitely used in PvP, but they're just PvP offense, and I think neither of them are super common in the meta right now. I could be low valuing these guys, and that they're maybe a little bit higher value, but I haven't used mine in like ages, legit ages, and I haven't seen any guildie use them in ages as well, where they were using you before quite a bit. I think I'll up you a little bit more because of you have some more potential because of resetting your skill, but I think I'm just going to put it like this. You are the one that actually is the one that does counter the... Yeah, you are the one that counters the Odin kind of style. Still would drop you a niche PvP for that reason, because I don't really think it's like the best counter to it, but it's decent. Hongyong, I would say Hongyong is really good for PvP because Hongyong does have high value for PvP, because it's the only unit that can be faster than Tiana, but still provide attack buff for the whole team, including the Tiana itself. So definitely for that reason, I think she gets a lot of arena offense value. Plus, she also has the value of being in the Drake and Warrior team and being a best in slot in there for always giving attack buff. but it's maybe not used as much. I'll give it a little bit more of a niche, but she's definitely really nice. Plus 107 base speed, which is really nice to boost up your Tiana and then have your Tiana move, and then have the other units on an attack buff as well. But it doesn't outspeed everything out there. This thing is crazy good for PvE, but then we're just talking PvE in the sense of PvE with the TOA Hell. And just TOA Hell, anything outside of that, well, you can use it in some Siege Bruiser-ish hits as well if they don't have any form of sustain, but I would say TOA only value, but it's really high TOA only value. Moving on next, Kyle is definitely some PvE value as well, but I feel like he's kind of getting outshined because you have Agrias teams right now, which makes Kyle a little bit worse. You have like Julie plus Sigmaris teams over there. So Kyle is definitely not bad, but I think I'll place Kyle over here. He's getting a little bit more outshined, but he's definitely still, he's usable in Giants, Dragons for like semi-speed teams. He's no longer in really speed teams, but he's semi-speed teams. Then we have these two. I would have to double check what these things even do exactly. This one is just bunch of dots, right? And this one is also just bunch of dots and stuns, as far as I know. Yeah, neither of them I think can be used, but not really a big fan. Blade Dancer on this. What were you? You were like the multi-hits. Yup. Ignore defense. I've never ever seen anyone use it, but I can see some value of being used. This one is the attack bar booster plus speed booster plus crit booster, which I would claim niche for PvP, but mainly niche for PvP. So I'm going to place that up there. Probably some people will use this, but reason that I like a Bernard over here is that Bernard has higher base, plus Bernard S1 and S2 do a good bit of damage as well, where she doesn't really have that value. Then we have this thing, which straight away goes very high up here. I think I'm going to be placing it over here. It is just one dungeon, don't get me wrong on this. It's just one dungeon, and that is Steel Fortress, but she's absolutely best in slot and a must for Steel Fortress. So she gets the same as like Abigail. It is a must for one particular dungeon, so therefore she gets the must in one particular dungeon value over there. Then we have some of the Onimushas. Definitely not super common units out there, but I would say I give you a niche for PvP, somewhere along these lines. This one, I would say, is a little bit higher on the niche for PvP, or like the PvP prio build. It's arena offense, siege offense can be used, but it's not really commonly used these days. There's definitely better options, but I would definitely still build one of those. And then for Fuki, I would say also niche PvP, but definitely along these lines as well. Robos. This is the Robo that is used in the defense with the Conrad +1. So I'll give you a high up niche PvP as well. Well, there's a few ways that you can use that in offense as well. No, I'll give you a prio build, but not like a super high prio build, because the team is very, very specific. But outside of that, it's really good. Wind Robo is priority for siege offense and RTA. So I actually give you a lot of value because you are an RTA unit. That's, would we say build multiple Robos? No, I think I just place you all the way at the top because you actually have, out of all of the units over here, probably the most use case in RTA. So I'll just put the Robo over there. This Robo is arguably a good counter against anything that takes additional turns. So a Sierra S2 counts as additional turn, but also a Venton, Thunder State, or the Inosuke S3, the Water Inosuke. So has a bit of RTA shine over there. So wouldn't really use it anywhere else than just RTA. But in RTA, he has actually pretty good value over there. So the Robo's gonna get over there in the build. This thing, never seen being used. To be honest, I would even have to check what the hell you even do. What do you have? Oh no, this thing is just straight bad. You go to the bad. Miriam is really good for PvP. You don't really have to build it, but it is definitely a good unit to increase your attack buff value. Plus, it can be used in some PvE scenarios as well. To be honest, I kind of like her more in PvE than I like her in PvP. So I'm going to put her in PvE priority. Because in PvP, the only team that I would actually use is probably the Lucian Lucifer. Outside of that, probably would not really use that at all. But in PvE, you have some niche, like definitely in your R5 team next to a Baal, in your Temple of Chaos teams, like there's definitely a few options over there. Sizzling is really good for those scenarios as well. Definitely in Temple of Chaos. I would place her rather than a Mermaid if you're just trying to do the Draken Warrior team. She has like mainly Draken Warrior team value. That's for me the highest value out there. I tried on a few different accounts this rotation, and she makes it super easy to get like 6 to 10 mil on a lot of accounts without too much RNG involved in the Draken Warrior team. So I definitely would recommend to use her over a Mermaid by a really long shot. Moving on next, Hypnomeows. I'm not even sure what this one does. Recover, and then you recover. Okay. Can be used, but it's kind of this. This one, I actually used to use this with like an Annabelle Josephine in Siege Offense as just kind of a niche hit. It was not bad, but it's also not particularly anything good. You are the one that allies cannot be defeated. Okay, that's just kind of bad. So you have those out there. Then we go for these. What was the water one? Water one was also AoE hit, right? Yep, okay. So this one is a niche PvE, but really high-end niche for PvE, I would say. Definitely this one is a must build for PvE because this one just has way better damage than this, because this one has the double hit, whereas you are for the ones that do the same thing as one another, where you start AoE hitting all the time. You're the weakest one. The best order to go for is build this one first, then the light one, and then this one. And you most of the time only need 2, so therefore you get a niche value in there. But you are very, very good in subjugation value. So subjugation, time attacks, labyrinth, those kind of things. He's crazy good at that, but it's just pretty much that. Now we have Praline, which is more of a PvP unit, but I would say he's pretty good in PvP because he has the speed lead, he has an attack bar boost, he has attack buff, and he has crit buff, if I'm not mistaken, and that's just a pretty loaded kit for... It's just a 15 boost that makes it a little bit worse, but also on the 19 lead actually makes him pretty high value right there. Moving on next to this one. This one does do either pushbacks if you freeze, or did do something else with a freeze. I forgot. What do you do? Yeah, increase damage. And attack bar decrease. I would say is decent. In some stages you kind of want to use that, but unless you always pair it up with other freezes, it's more niche than anything, I would say. How about Fire One? Fire One is the weak as I attempt to buff block kind of thing, but I don't really do it, so I'm just going to put you over there. And then we have this one, which is the immune to sleep, blah, blah, blah. You will gain attack power. Yeah, not really, kind of bad. Assassin's Creed units. This one first of all. Which one was that? Nope, nope, nope. Do I even have the Ezio in there? I do have the Ezio in there. That's good. I need you on fire. What did you do? Recover, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, don't really... Can be used, don't really see the value. This one is the one that was trying to dot for giants, and then we couldn't dot in giants anymore, so just bad. This one is also... This is the one which is kind of weird, where you're water and you always crit on wind, or something weird like that. Has potential, but not really great. Ezio is... I would say over there can be used, but it's not really great. Bayek, also kind of same thing, can be used, but it's not really great. So one usage where it's kind of okay, but that's just the water dungeon in Spires, but outside of that, kind of mid. Vitra looking thing, what are you on this? Yeah, way too long to stack all the way, so has some potential, but kind of bad. You are the one that has shit ton of multi-hits, right? Yep. I would say over here can be used but could be replaced. Then we have seen this one. Ursha was actually used in defense a bunch of times in Siege. But I'll give you a niche for that right now. But a decent niche. I think you like kind of like commune kind of value. Could be a despair kind of unit on that. Then the Subsares. Subsares, this one was the one that recovers. Is actually not a bad unit against like heavy stuns and stuff. But I'll give you a niche PvP for that reason, just a niche. The other one is a immunity attack bar gain. Is kind of unique to have immunity and attack bar gain itself in a unit. Plus an attack buff. You don't have too many of those. It's kind of like Draco, but then lower bar and no speed buff, but guaranteed on the attack buff, which can be nice niche here and there. I think I'm gonna just put you on the same level. And then we have the other one, which it was the fake Tiana guild lead 24, right? So yeah, removes some beneficial effects, absorbs the bar, and blah blah blah. Can be used as a Tiana kind of unit as well with a speed lead. So I'll give that a little bit higher value. It's more siege offense. Siege defense, I've seen a few, but wasn't really too impressed. Then we have the next unit, which is kind of awkward. That's going to be... can we go to Siri? Well, the Siri one. The Siri one, this one, needs a lot of speed to deal damage, but she's purely a PvE unit, so it gets kind of weird where she becomes good. But I'll give her a niche PvE. This one, as I remember, is going to be the one that has the dots. Could be wrong in that. Are you the one with the dots? No, you're the one with the branding. Okay, that's just straight up. Pretty mid. Now let's place it over there. Water one on that. I have to double check. Like these units you barely ever see, so kind of have to double check, which makes this list already longer than an hour. Yay. Where are you at? Where are you at? Wait, this one? Are you not? Oh, you're supposedly this, I guess. I guess so. So you're the one with the dots. Continuous damage, blah, blah. Yeah, not really common. I think I can see potential for you. Same for you with the dots, but not really commonly used out there at all. Cyborg, which one was this? One lances glancing hit, speed. Okay, definitely not really used. Kind of bad. Fire one, however, is the one with the guaranteed... Yeah, this is the one, the only guaranteed Deathbreaker in game, but needs a whole bunch of value to actually get there all the way. But I'll give you a niche for PvP. Issue is that you need too much setup. You need higher defense and higher attack than the enemy to guarantee your hate, which can be used, but it's kind of weird. But I'll give you a high niche in PvP because you're pretty unique in that. Then we have this one, which does have a speed lead in guild content, which is not the worst. And it does also have the anti-revive on the S2, so it can be used against like Tyrannies or something like that. And it's a pretty decent bruiser unit. It actually does kind of pack a punch. I was using it in, what's it called? The Water Temple of Chaos as well. But I'll give you a niche as well. But I'll give you a high-end niche, like pretty much similar to you. No, actually, yeah, high-end niche for that. Now we go into some Itadoris. Itadori, this one is the one absorb, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think can be used, but not really great. Nobara on fire. I have never seen that unit in my life. So she's probably bad. That's most of the time. Like if I haven't seen it, it's most likely kind of bad. Is Nobara fire even a unit that is located? Oh wait, that's the annoying thing that they don't have an awakened version or a non-awakened version. So I have to look at them over here. That makes sense. Nobara over here. What skill did you have? Yeah, this one. Yep, kind of ass. This. Megumi over there. Kind of ass. Tanjiro on water. Did he also have like a death break kind of thing? Or what did this guy do? Freeze continuous damage. Yeah, it can be used, but there's better options out there. Nezuko is actually pretty good. She's actually in one of the main PvE teams. So I would say... Yeah, she's actually in one of the teams for the dragon. Plus she can be used for PvP as well. I'll give her a low priority in PvE. But that particular team, she's actually really good. Which is like double bird, Julie plus Agrius team. Then we have this thing. Oh man, these are so annoying to fight because every time I have to do it like this and then scroll through. But I don't even know what the frick these things do. Yep. Increase your damage. Yeah, nah, I can see some potential. This one, straight up bad. Monk is actually pretty good for PvP. It does have a... Oh, let's see where you're at, Mr. Monk. Oh, Monk we can find over here. Monk does have a immunity plus attack buff plus a shield. So that definitely does have some value out there for a booster plus protection kind of unit. So I would definitely give you priority in PvP, mainly in siege offense kind of style. I'll place you somewhere along these lines. Well, actually, yeah, kind of along your lines. It's kind of a similar style of unit. You do have a speed lead, you don't, but you give protection and you don't. The other things, this one we have seen on defense a few times, but I was not that impressed. But I can see him being used on defense still, so let's kind of place him along the side. And then we have the wind one, which cannot be counted. No one cares. US! Then we have some of those. Oh, wait, if we do this and then this, can we find it then? Brilliant Dancer. Nope, nope. Nina Williams. This one is the deal increased damage. Yeah, this is one of those weird units. Like, I'm trying to be a PvE kind of unit, but I'm not really. And you are the one with max HP hits. I would say can be used and is kind of bad. Then we have the Warring kind of thingy, which is probably findable like this. Yep. Leaves Brownie for 2 turns. Oh yeah, this one has a decent bit of damage for PvE, but his issue is that his animations are so crazy stupidly long that he just doesn't really get PvE shine in there at all. And then we still have the Water Djinn. Where the hell the Water Djinn at? So if we go through this, upgrade you, and then one back. Yep. Oh yeah, that's like the 23.5% HP. Yeah, you weird. You bad. Stop being bad. Then we also have all of these. I don't even remember what you do. Counterattack. Yeah, has some potential, but not really a big fan. I would give you a niche in PvE, but a high niche in PvE. You actually have pretty decent damage on bosses that are water, but you're not really crazy good at it. And then the final unit, which is, of course, Agrias. And Agrias goes all the way to the top. And Agrias goes... Yeah, I would say, yep. Agrias goes all the way to the top because you have PvE value as well. And you having PvE value and being an absolute best in slot in some of those PvE stages, yep. Plus, still really good next to a Chilling or an Adriana in siege offenses. Yep, lots of value over there in both scenarios. So we're going to put Agrias all the way to the top. With Agrias, keep in mind, most of the time you just need crit rate and you already do enough damage. Best to keep in mind is also that his S2 is not speed scaling, where S1 is speed scaling. So if you're super fast, S1 is what you want to do. Also for him, if you're not familiar with him, if he has 100 more speed than the enemy, he will 100% ignore defense. If he has 50 more speed, he will 50% ignore defense. So you want to always aim for that 100 extra speed, and therefore in every speed kind of dungeon that he's in, he will have 100 speed more than the enemy, most likely around that exact number and not that much higher, and then the rest is in crit rate, crit damage kind of style. Also, because of his skill 1 is mainly speed scaling, you don't care about that much attack, but you care about crit rate and crit damage. So that's about all for this whole list, and that's also the last tier list, so I will be making on the whole whatever Reddit post with all of the lists in there for you guys to see. Guys, thanks a lot for watching. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and like this video. As mentioned, 2A tier list probably not gonna do until new 2As are released, because right now only the Siren is added new compared to the last tier list, and maybe that will actually shake up the meta a little bit of building things earlier. I would definitely say just the Siren is the dark one is a must priority build. Any of the others you don't really want to build. Colleen you can build, but it's not really a must at all. So that's all for this tier list, guys. Thanks for watching and see you later. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.